12:18 at night on December 15th, 2025, the sky north of Seoul suddenly vibrated with rapid helicopter engine sounds, like a giant swarm of locusts. More than 300 North Korean transport and armed helicopters flew close to the ground at an altitude under 30 meters, crossed the Kaesong mountain range in absolute silence, lights all off. 12 minutes later, cabin doors opened simultaneously all over Nawon, Dobong, and Uijeongbu districts. 2,000 North Korean special forces in black gear rappelled down onto apartment roofs, parks, and sleeping highways. Sound of ropes tightening, sound of leather boots touching concrete rang out dryly. Less than 40 seconds, rifle and grenade launcher fire rang out across the northern suburbs. South Korean patrol soldiers at border posts were shot down right inside patrol cars. Headlights still shone brightly amidst the night. At the same time, from Kaesong, only 16 kilometers from the border, 200 heavy multiple rocket launchers roared simultaneously. 1,200 300mm rockets rushed into the sky, drawing a white fire net, then poured down on Osan and Suwon air bases like a firestorm. Each exploded into hundreds of shrapnel and napalm pieces, turning runways and hangars into a bright red sea of fire higher than 100 meters. Continuous secondary explosions lasted for 8 minutes. A vertical black smoke column covered the entire sky south of Seoul. Beneath the West Sea surface, 6 North Korean submarines rose to launch depth in just 10 seconds, firing simultaneously 48 cruise missiles into Incheon and Busan ports. White fire streaks rushed low near the waves, crashing straight into piers, container yards, and oil tankers. Both ports exploded continuously. Orange-red fire flared up higher than 300 meters, illuminating the entire Dark Night Sea area like daytime. Seoul shook. Alarm sirens wailed belatedly. The black night suddenly turned into a day of fire. 2:10 in the morning, the freezing northeast wind carried the smell of gunpowder right into the center of Seoul. At the underground war room beneath the Ministry of National Defense in Yongsan, South Korean officers stood dead silent before the large screen. More than 2,000 red dots moving fast southward through the northern districts, while the rocket fire net still poured down on Osan like rain. A short order was issued. Total counterattack. Hold nothing back. At the same time, from Cheongju and Wonju bases, 120 South Korean stealth fighter jets took off in absolute silence, flying low under remaining North Korean radar. They crossed the Imjin River in just 7 minutes. Weapon bays opened simultaneously over the North Korean tank column, rushing along National Route 1. 180 precision-guided bombs fell like iron rain, striking straight into turrets and engine compartments. 18 leading tanks exploded ammunition continuously, creating a fire strip longer than 3 kilometers amidst the night mist-covered rice fields. Orange-red fire flared high, drowning out the headlights of the convoy behind. In the west, the South Korean destroyer from Incheon, though burning, still accelerated out to sea. Vertical launchers fired continuously. 48 hypersonic cruise missiles rushed up, then turned north, flying low, skimming waves at only 15 meters. They crashed straight into the North Korean landing ship cluster, gathering off the coast of Hwanghae. 16 landing ships burst open at once. Fire spread from the troop compartment. Thousands of North Korean soldiers were burned alive before they could jump into the freezing water. On the ground north of Seoul, South Korean special forces from the Capital Division in black gear counterattacked back into occupied districts. Street fighting broke out fiercely in narrow alleys. Rifle and grenade explosions rang out ceaselessly. North Korean soldiers held out in high-rise apartment buildings, but South Korean handheld anti-tank missiles fired straight through windows, turning each floor into a bright red fireball. The night sky was now glowing red at both ends. South burning from North Korean rockets, north burning from South Korean guided bombs. Overlapping explosion sounds drowned out, even the sirens wailing ceaselessly across Seoul. 4:30 in the morning, cold rain began to pour down on Seoul. like millions of ice blades. At the Incheon River Bridge, the second North Korean tank column of 70 vehicles rushed across the pontoon bridge, newly built in the night. South Korean self-propelled artillery from the Paju line roared simultaneously. 160 155mm gun barrels fired at the same time. High explosive and armor-piercing shells fell like iron rain onto the convoy. Less than 40 seconds, the pontoon bridge broke in two. 20 leading tanks fell straight into the icy river. Water splashed red with fire. The remaining ones tried to turn around, but were hit by anti-armor cluster bombs, dropped from South Korean fighter jets right after. Thousands of tiny bomblets exploded, tearing apart track armor, turning the convoy into 70 vertical fire columns amidst cold rain and mud. At the same time, on the East Coast, 8 large South Korean transport helicopters flew close to the waves of the Sea of Japan, crossing the border in dense fog. Cabin doors opened over Wonsan Port. South Korean special forces wearing white snow camouflage fast roped down onto the sleeping pier. Sound of ropes tightening, sound of boots touching concrete rang out dryly. North Korean patrol soldiers had their throats slit, right at guard posts, unable to utter a sound. In just 11 minutes, the entire Wonsan port was in South Korean hands. The main oil depot was mined and exploded into a fireball higher than 200 meters. Beneath the West Sea surface, the 1st and 2nd South Korean submarines launched a volley of 12 heavy torpedoes at the North Korean frigate cluster, trying to protect supply lines. 12 dull explosion sounds shook the seabed. 12 ship hulls bucked up, then sank vertically. Pitch black oil slicks spread tens of nautical miles amidst cold rain. Rain was now red with blood and burning oil. The northeast wind carried the sound of metal screaming, wind torn apart, and weak cries for help from North Korean soldiers amidst the frozen Incheon River. Blood-red dawn broke east of the Han River. Cold, golden sun shone on high-rise buildings in northern Seoul, still red with fire. From Gangneung Base, 60 South Korean armed helicopters took off in silence, flying low under 20 meters along the Incheon River. They cut across the North Korean armored column, trying to cross the river using the third pontoon bridge. Cabin doors opened. 120 anti-tank missiles rushed down like rain. Each struck precisely into the turret or engine compartment. 70 armored vehicles exploded continuously. Fire flared high, drowning out the sound of drizzling rain. Those trying to rush onto the bank were direct fired upon by South Korean self-propelled guns from Paju High Hill. Armor-piercing shells tore apart thin steel hulls like tearing paper. At the same time, at the occupied Wonsan port, South Korean special forces pushed fast inland, 8 kilometers. They captured the North Korean coastal missile depot, cut control cables, then set timed mines. 10 minutes later, the entire depot exploded into a giant fireball higher than 400 meters. Shockwaves swept away nearby barracks. On the East Sea surface, 4 South Korean destroyers from Uljin accelerated to 36 knots. Vertical launchers fired continuously. 64 hypersonic cruise missiles rushed up, then turned northwest, flying low, skimming waves at only 10 meters. They crashed straight into the North Korean landing ship cluster, trying to retreat towards Cheongjin. 24 landing ships burst open at once. Fire spread from the troop compartment. Thousands of North Korean soldiers were burned alive before they could jump into the freezing water. Under the ash-gray sky, overlapping explosion sounds drowned out even the sound of helicopters still circling over the North Korean tank column, now only remaining as vertical black smoke columns amidst the red burning rice field. Cold rain turned into hail, falling pattering on Seoul tin roofs at 8 in the morning. From Seosan and Jungwon bases, 120 South Korean stealth fighter jets sortied for the third time, flying at low altitude along the Taedong River, then suddenly circled back north of Pyongyang. Remaining North Korean radar could not alert in time. Weapon bays opened simultaneously over the third tank column. trying to retreat to Sariwan. 180 anti-armor guided bombs and cluster bombs fell like iron rain. Thousands of tiny bomblets exploded, tearing apart turret armor, track armor, turning the 80-vehicle convoy into 80 vertical fire columns amidst National Route 1, covered in white mist. Secondary explosions lasted for 4 minutes. A black smoke column higher than 2,000 meters could be seen from as far as Seoul. At the same time, on the West Sea surface, 6 South Korean destroyers, arranged in an arrow shape, rushed straight into Nampo waters. Vertical launchers fired continuously. 120 hypersonic cruise missiles rushed out, flying low, ESCALATION waves, at only 8 meters, then simultaneously turned towards North Korea's main military port. They crashed straight into piers, submarine depots, and coastal missile depots. 36 continuous explosions turned the entire port into a sea of fire 12 hectares wide. Orange-red fire flared up higher than 300 meters. Shockwaves threw dozens of old submarines anchored out of the water, then fell crashing down like red-hot iron blocks. On the ground north of Seoul, the South Korean 7th Armored Division crossed the Imjin River. Using a pontoon bridge newly built in the night, the lead tank fired immediately upon touching the north bank. 120mm guns fired directly into apartment buildings occupied by North Korean special forces. Each floor exploded from bottom to top. Concrete and steel flew like rain. Fire spread from windows down to the sidewalk. Hail was now mixed with blood and ash. The northeast wind carried the sound of metal screaming when torn apart, and weak cries for help from North Korean sailors. Amidst Nampo port sinking in fire, 10 o'clock in the morning, dense fog covered the sea east of North Korea, like a gray-white curtain. From the Dokdo carrier circling off the coast of Gangneung, 24 large South Korean transport helicopters took off continuously, flying low, ESCALATION waves at only 15 meters. They crossed the border in silence. Cabin doors opened over Wonsan Port, which had been captured the previous night. The 2nd Special Forces Team, 300 South Korean Marines wearing white snow camouflage, fast roped down onto the pier and old military runway. Sound of ropes tightening, sound of boots touching concrete rang out dryly amidst the fog. Remaining North Korean soldiers holding out in warehouses tried to fire back with machine guns, but South Korean handheld anti-tank missiles fired straight through the window, turning each warehouse into a bright red fireball. In just 17 minutes, the entire Wonsan port area and airport had been expanded into a solid foothold. At the same time, from Pyeongtaek base, 200 South Korean multiple rocket launchers roared simultaneously. 1,300mm rockets rushed into the sky, drawing a white fire net, then poured down on Kaesong and Sariwan cities like a firestorm. Each shattered into hundreds of napalm and shrapnel submunitions, covering barracks, ammunition depots, and highways. Orange-red fire flared up higher than 500 meters, burning for 14 hectares. A vertical black smoke column higher than 3,000 meters could be seen from as far as Seoul. In the northern sky, South Korean stealth fighter jets circled back for the 4th time, dropping precision-guided bombs on the North Korean relief convoy, rushing down from Pyongyang. 60 bombs struck straight into ammunition depots on trucks, turning the 5-kilometer-long convoy into a continuous fire strip amidst the fog-covered national highway. The fog was now red with blood and napalm. The northeast wind carried the strong smell of burning flesh, and the sound of metal screaming when torn apart. 12 noon, harsh sunlight pierced through gray cloud layers, shining straight down on the East Sea surface like thousands of white blades. From Jinhae and Busan, 8 South Korean destroyers and frigates arranged in 2 arrows, rushing straight north at 38 knots. Vertical launch tubes fired simultaneously. 160 hypersonic cruise missiles left the pads in 15 seconds, flying low, skimming waves at only 12 meters, then suddenly arching high, rushing straight into the final North Korean landing ship cluster, trying to retreat towards Cheongjin. They pierced decks, pierced engine rooms, pierced magazines. 32 landing ships burst open at once. Orange-red fire flared up higher than 400 meters. Shockwaves threw thousands of North Korean soldiers into the air, then fell crashing into the sea like red burning sacks. At the same time, on the mainland north of Seoul, the South Korean 1st and 3rd Armored Divisions simultaneously crossed the Han River using newly built pontoon bridges. The lead tank fired immediately upon touching the north bank. 120mm guns fired directly into the last apartment complexes still occupied by North Korean Special Forces. 18-story concrete blocks collapsed from top to bottom. Fire spread from the basement to the roof. Sounds of breaking glass and screeching steel echoed throughout Dobong District. On the ground in Kaesong, South Korean self-propelled artillery from the Paju line continued heavily, 160 high-explosive and incendiary rounds per minute fell on the city like iron rain. Barracks, ammunition depots, highways were completely flattened. Fire spread wide over 20 hectares. A black smoke column stood vertical higher than 4,000 meters. The noon sun was now red, with blood and burning oil. The northeast wind carried the sound of metal screaming when torn, and weak cries for help from collapsing basements. 2 in the afternoon, the harsh sun poured fire over the entire peninsula. From Wonju and Cheongju bases, 180 South Korean fighter jets and bombers, sortied for the last time of the day, flying at low altitude along the Taedong River, then suddenly circled up north of Pyongyang. Weapon bays opened simultaneously over the main ammunition depot and ballistic missile depot, located deep under the mountain near Sunan. 302,000-kilogram bunker buster guided bombs rushed down like giant spears. They pierced through the 10-meter thick concrete layer, exploding inside the storage chamber. A series of continuous secondary explosions tore apart the whole mountain. Orange-red fire erupted from dozens of tunnel mouths. Like an awakening volcano, a brown-black smoke column stood vertical higher than 6,000 meters, visible from as far as Busan, 600 kilometers away. At the same time, on the West Sea surface, the Dokdo carrier and 2 escort destroyers accelerated to 36 knots, approaching the 38th parallel. Armed helicopters took off ceaselessly from the deck, flying low, wiping out small North Korean patrol boats, still trying to flee along the Hwanghae coast. Air-to-sea missiles fired straight, turning 24 patrol boats into 24 floating fire columns amidst 3-meter-high waves. On the ground north of Seoul, the South Korean 9th and 26th Infantry Divisions entered the cleared districts. They swept every building, every basement. Not a single North Korean Special Forces soldier survived. Only the smell of burnt flesh and hot concrete remained. Bulldozers began flattening ruined apartment blocks. The sound of steel grinding screeched, echoing in the harsh sun. The afternoon sun was now dark red like dried blood. The northeast wind carried ash dust and the still hot smell of gunpowder from distant Pyongyang. 10 o'clock on the second night, the Seoul sky was eerily silent. Only the northeast wind hissed through burnt black house frames, and the sound of bulldozers still grinding, screeching in the north remained. From Seosan Base, 36 South Korean stealth bombers took off for the last time, flying at low altitude along the west coast, then circled back up to Pyongyang in absolute darkness. Exactly at 11:12, weapon bays opened over the underground command complex and the final ballistic missile depot near Pyongyang. 108 2,000-kilogram bunker buster guided bombs rushed down like black shooting stars. They pierced through the 20-meter thick granite layer, exploding inside the main tunnel. A series of continuous secondary explosions tore apart the whole mountain range. Fire erupted from dozens of tunnel mouths, like a volcano awakening for the second time in the day. A black-red vertical smoke column higher than 8,000 meters lit up half the sky of the northern peninsula. At the same time, beneath the East Sea surface, 6 South Korean submarines simultaneously launched the final volley, 48 heavy torpedoes, at the final North Korean warships, still trying to run towards Vladivostok. 48 dull explosion sounds shook the seabed. 48 ship hulls burst open, then sank vertically. Pitch-black oil slicks spread hundreds of nautical miles amidst the dark night. On land, South Korean self-propelled guns from the Paju Line fired a concluding salute volley. 1,000 parachute flares flew up high, then hung suspended over the demilitarized zone, turning the entire borderline into a cold white light strip. Not a single North Korean shadow moved. Only cold wind and ash dust remained. The second night ended in absolute silence. Only light from distant fires in Pyongyang still flickered bright red on the horizon. 5:17 in the morning, on December 17, 2025, the freezing northeast wind swept away ash dust on Seoul streets. Alarm sirens turned off completely for the last time. No more explosions, no more helicopter sounds, only the sound of fire trucks wailing in long bursts, and the sound of citizens starting to step out of shelters. At the Yongsan Underground Command Post, officers closed the war logbook. The official time was recorded. Hostilities ended at 5:20. All North Korean infiltrating forces have been destroyed or surrendered. The demilitarized zone is completely retaken. Seoul is safe. At the same time, at Wonsan Port, South Korean special forces raised the South Korean flag to the highest pole, fluttering in the cold wind. Tanks of the 7th Division crossed the Imjin River for the last time, advancing straight to smoldering Kaesong. Not a single shot fired back. Beneath the East Sea and West Sea surface, South Korean submarines rose to periscope depth. The observation lens rotated slowly, one last round. Not a single propeller turning, not a single sonar signal blinking. Only pitch-black oil slicks remained, and North Korean life rafts drifting aimlessly amidst drifting ice. In the sky north of Pyongyang, the smoke column from the final missile depot still stood vertical, higher than 8,000 meters, covering half the horizon like a giant funeral shroud. South Korean unmanned reconnaissance aircraft circled slowly, recording images of the silent city under a thick ash layer. The sun rose completely, shining cold gold onto Seoul, still smoking from charred black buildings. Citizens began stepping out onto the streets, looking up at the blue sky no longer filled with smoke and fire. Sounds of children crying and adults calling each other rang out amidst the rubble piles. The Korean peninsula was now truly dead silent. Only cold wind and the smell of ashes remained.